Hello everybody, welcome. My name is PenguinDog and today we're going to be reviewing a game called SpongeBob Squarepants, Battle for Bikini Bottom. Let's go. So this game came out in 2003 originally and is now only being remastered in 2020 by a group of people called Purple Lamp and being published by THQ, the original people who published the original game. Now this was a game that I grew up with, but I never really finished past the first couple of levels. However, even that and the soundtrack still feel quite nostalgic to me going back to this game. And I just saw it on the Steam page and I was excited to jump back in since it's been so long that I actually, originally played it. And it wasn't until I actually looked at the reviews from the critics and saw how polarizing this game has been that really piqued my interest and really made me go ahead and buy this game. Now first off are the graphics. Now the graphics look really polished and clean. If you go back to the original graphics from 2003, you can tell that they looked more faithful to the original show. However, if you look at the graphics now, they look more akin to what the show looks like now, more clean and pristine. And in my opinion, that's not really a bad thing. If there's one good thing to come out of the new SpongeBob episodes, it's the art style. Just in the same way that The Simpsons look better now, even though everything else is terrible. So I don't actually mind the more updated look, and I mean, that's probably part of the deal from remastering or making a new SpongeBob game nowadays, so I'll take it. Now, it was developed in Unreal Engine 4, and it takes advantage of some of the depth of field effects you would probably be used to in seeing a 2020 release. But how does the gameplay actually fare? Well, I would venture to say it's just as good as it was back in the day. If you've played a licensed game, you sort of know what you're in for. It's a game which is built to be accessible for anyone to pick up and play, yet it provides a fairly decent challenge in the later game. In certain areas. Some of the puzzles are genuinely challenging, yet at the same time they aren't too hard. It just takes a little bit of thinking and brain power to really get it going. And the platforming feels surprisingly solid and the camera controls feel accurate. So it's been a while since I actually played the older game, so I don't know if it's accurate to how that used to play, but it's pretty much how I remembered it from when I used to play it, and either way, it works great. So as you would expect, there are different areas from the game, and each area/level feels distinct from one another, and has its own individual aesthetic. A really interesting part about it is it doesn't follow the typical platforming standards set by your Marios or your Sonics or whatever. Yeah, it has its green level at the beginning, but then we go to places like downtown Bikini Bottom and then the beach, and then these really cool underground areas, which is actually my favorite part of the game. So there's this place called Rock Bottom, and it has this neon arcade theme, and you have to find an alternative route into the museum and steal paintings. It feels really cool, and honestly isn't really something you would expect from a 3D platformer. It feels unique, it feels special, even today in 2020. In fact, probably even more so nowadays, because you don't really get games coming out like this too much. I mean, outside of obviously Nintendo with the new Marios and whatever. There are some areas I disliked, especially the kelp forest area, because it felt a lot like a labyrinth. And honestly, it felt unnecessary near the end of the game because that's where it came in. I feel like it should have been a little easier and placed near the front end of the game. It's not a badly designed area, it's just a little monotonous considering its placement in the story. Now in the game, you can play as different characters. You can play as SpongeBob, Patrick, and Sandy. Now Patrick can pick up heavy objects like tikis and watermelons, and Sandy can glide and slingshot all over the place. And the levels sort of accommodate this, and it adds a lot to the structure and it adds a lot of variety. Just about as soon as you're bored with SpongeBob's moveset, it throws in a different character to play as, which is a lot of fun. Another thing in this game are the bosses, and for the most part, they're pretty good. The only one I really had an issue with was Patrick. Patrick felt a little rushed and seemed to suffer from some iffy hit detection, but that's really all I can think of. The final boss especially is really great and had my heart pumping. So what do you actually do in these levels? Well, you basically collect things like the old rare platformers of the days. You collect golden spatulas, which actually lets you unlock new areas, and you need 75 golden spatulas in order to unlock the final boss, of which there are 100 golden spatulas, so you need to unlock around 75% of the golden spatulas in order to finish the game. But you can also collect Patrick's socks, which you can then give into Patrick for a golden spatula. Now you need to give in 10 of these, and I believe there's 80 Patrick socks. I only collected around 40, but if I was going for a 100% playthrough, I'm sure that would be a great lot of fun. Another thing you can do to get more spatulas are the shiny objects. Now, the shiny objects in this game work like a currency, essentially. You need to use these in order to open up certain parts of the levels. And then you can also hand these into Mr. Krabs in order to get more golden spatulas. And he keeps raising the price every time in good old Mr. Krabs tradition. A lot of it feels very natural, and it doesn't feel much like a collectathon. It feels like you're naturally progressing through the level and getting these golden spatulas as they come to you, which is great. I'm not necessarily a fan of the whole collectathon trend, which was popular back in the mid 2000s, even in like the later 90s, around the N64 era, and it never felt intimidating to me. I genuinely enjoy playing through this game, and it feels a lot more relaxed of a collectathon game as opposed to your Banjo-Kazooie or whatever. Now, another thing this game throws in to keep things fresh is a surfing minigame, which is really fun. It feels like there's actually a lot of momentum behind it, and you have to carefully time your jumps. I mean, obviously not to an insane amount, but they tend to be quite fun to play through. There is one section of the game which is dedicated to these surfing minigames, and they have these time trial modes where in order to get some of the spatulas in the levels, you have to beat a certain time, which these do not underestimate. These are difficult. It took me a while to actually realize how to do some of these. You have to cut corners, but yeah, they provide a genuinely hard challenge, and I enjoyed all of it. Now, one thing I've yet to mention is that SpongeBob can unlock different abilities, and it always feels natural and switches things up quite well. In fact, you can also go back to some of the older levels and use the new abilities, like a Metroidvania, which is welcome and adds a lot of depth to the game. Now, aside from the gameplay, there is the soundtrack and music, and each level has a really distinct theme to match not only the environments, but they also sound very SpongeBob-esque. It's exactly what you would want from a SpongeBob licensed game. Now, I have quite a lot of nostalgia for the earlier tracks, but even the later ones, which I don't have nostalgia for, they still sound great, and honestly, I was excited to get to the new environments just to hear the soundtrack. So whoever did those, you did a great job. Now, another great thing about this game is the story and narrative. The writing feels up to par with the earlier 1 to 3 SpongeBob seasons. It's that good. It's an absolute delight to watch all these characters interact with each other and have their funny little quirks. And even if you don't get into it, there's always a skip button, you know, so you don't have to sit through them. But if you are a fan of SpongeBob, you probably will, because they are genuinely funny and feels refreshing to someone who doesn't really enjoy the latest SpongeBob episodes to see the old formula and the old writing come back to life in 2020 was an absolute treat. Now, the actual story isn't in depth or anything. Essentially, the whole plot is that Plankton, as always, is trying to steal the Krabby Patty formula and creates a bunch of robots which turn on him because he forgot to flick a switch. It's really dumb, but it's SpongeBob. You know, who cares? You're not coming in here for The Last of Us 2. So that's brilliant in my opinion. Now, bugs and issues I've been hearing a lot about. Me personally, I didn't really have a lot of them. There is one bug where I got stuck on a platform, which I'll play here. But apart from that, I haven't experienced much, really. I know there is that bug they haven't patched yet, and I did it myself just to see if it exists, and it does. They still haven't patched it out. You can essentially skip this game as soon as you unlock the world map by just pressing A and spacebar on at the same time on like a controller and a keyboard, and you can go right to the final boss and beat the game. Which is, it's funny. I wouldn't say it's game-breaking like some people have said, but I'm sure the speedrunning community is quite pissed off about it. So they probably have a whole other percentile for that. But I just thought it was pretty funny, so I thought I'd mention it. And one thing which did actually throw me off a little bit was the lip-syncing issues. The dialogue doesn't really seem to fit the movements of the mouth. To be honest, it's expected because apparently they used all the old lines from the original game, which would be kind of hard to lip sync. I don't know. I'm not really an expert in that field. It did sort of annoy me a little bit. Now, all in all, SpongeBob Squarepants Battle for Bikini Bottom is an incredibly faithful remaster, which stays very close to the original. and all the additions they added seem fitting. From my memory and what I can remember, this game is still as good as it was when it first came out. And if you've been waiting to play this game in full like I have, this is your chance. Go buy SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. It is totally worth your money, and it's not a full price game. It's about 25 quid on Steam, and I recommend it entirely. Now, one thing is, I haven't played the multiplayer, so take this review as a single player review. I have heard some pretty bad things about the multiplayer, so if you are getting this game for the multiplayer, don't. It's only about 45 minutes long. It's just a nice little side distraction. So I'm going to give SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom a 9 out of 10. It is totally worth your time, and I recommend it entirely. Now, as always, I'm going to be making these videos every Sunday, so if you like them, please leave a like and please subscribe and wait for my new video every Sunday at 7 PM. And tell me what you thought of SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom. Do you agree with the GameSpot and IGN reviews which have been giving it 2s? Or do you really love this game like I do? Let me know. I'm always interested to have a discussion about these games, and I do reply to every single comment I get. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next Sunday. Goodbye.
Sometimes pushing a simple button is the most satisfying. Push, 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 push. Fresh like a spring breeze.